Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Hope After the Landslide. I hope that you all had a good week. We're going to continue to do these every single Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I'm going to have a different mom on, whether she's going to be here live with me or she's going to be able to come in on the split screen. This is my friend Barb. Hi,
Hello.
Barb.
Hi, everyone.
And she has so courageously decided to, well, did I make you do it, or did you say, oh, okay, Jackie, I'll do it?
No, you just gave a simple request, and I was all for it, so I jumped right in.
And she did.
Mm-hmm.
Barb and I'm not going to steal, any part of her story, but I am so honored because Barb and I, first of all, go to this Saddleback Church, and we've known each other for now, how long has it even been?
Close to 2 years.
Close to 2 years. And when you hear the timeline, as far as we both lost a son, and only a month, was it a month? It was a month.
Couple weeks.
So it
Yeah.
was a couple weeks.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a month. And we didn't even know one another. But anyway, without further ado, I wanted to take a moment and let Barb share her story, and then we're going to open it up to, if you guys want to join in, we'll ask you where you're from, maybe, and maybe some of the things that Barb shares tonight, maybe you can, join in, kind of click on there, write a comment, and we can stop and chime in and see if there's anything that we can address at that time. So again, welcome to Hope After the Landslide. And Barb, would you like to share your story?
I would. So my son, his name is Gage, G-A-G-E, and his name came from an acronym from his Chinese name, which was Gua Ai-jun. And we adopted Gage. I have my husband, Dave, and I have 3 children older than Gage, Becky, Christine, and Jake. And we adopted Gage when he was 12. Jake was 14. Becky, Christine would have been 19 and Becky 21. So Christine and Becky were in college. We adopted Gage through an adoption agency in northeastern China. He had been in an orphanage almost all of his life. He was abandoned on a train when he was just exactly a year old. And in Dalian, which is a city right next to North Korea, way up in northeastern China. So we actually found him on a website called rainbowkids.com, and I was cruising around that thing, and I came across his picture of this adorable little guy. So cute. And I didn't even know if I was going to bring this up to Dave right away, so I showed it to the other 3 kids first, and they're like, yeah, let's go for it. And so when Dave got home from work, we showed him, and he was on board. And so it was a pretty long process, about 1.5 years of paperwork and home studies and all of that. But we traveled over to China. The girls, again, were in college, so Dave and Jake and I traveled over to China and picked Gage up, and he was 12 years old, very tiny. We were very surprised at his size because he had not had enough to eat in a long time, and took him to the pool in the hotel. We had to get water wings for a 12-year-old because he'd never been in a pool. But he adjusted so beautifully. So we brought him home to Irvine, California, which is a great place for an Asian kid because there's so many Asians. And the nice thing was so many people spoke Mandarin, and Gage did not know a word of English. And so we were so blessed. We would just call our neighbor Jinjin and say, for example, we adopted Gage. We got home on Halloween. Actually, we got him on Halloween Day. We get out of the taxi, and the street is full of, what,
no.
people all dressed up, and block party and stuff. And so the very following weekend, we had to go to Texas for my niece's wedding. And so we had to have Jinjin come over and explain, this. Like, you're going to get back on a plane, and you're going to Texas, and you're going to meet family. Anyway, so
that's actually kind of funny.
It was awesome. And it was funny because my niece ended up marrying a guy who was half Chinese, and so that whole side of the family spoke Mandarin. So at the wedding, he was very comfortable and loved and celebrated.
God knew.
Yeah.
He just knew.
He knew. So he did great. Again, Irvine is the best place to be transplanted if you're from another country because our schools have programs for English language learners. And so he spent most of his middle school day in a special class with other kids from around the world, which was really cool. And then he just went out for math and art, into the gen ed. So he adjusted really, really well and, made friends, joined our church happily, actually wasn't that happy at first. At the very beginning, he said, I don't go to church. I don't do that. And so Jinjin told him, well, you do now. So so he ended up, go Jinjin. He ended up really embracing our faith and making it his own. And he accepted Christ when he was in high school, young high school, and then was baptized at summer camp. So that was, and that continues to bless our hearts to know that, you know, that he knows Jesus, and that that was a huge part of his life. He went on mission trips to China, Mexico, and Rwanda. So he went on 3 mission trips through the church, and had lots of friends, played lacrosse. You know, that was like my favorite memory truly of Gage is taking him to Monkey Sports, and he got to pick out all this gear, and he was overjoyed. He just couldn't imagine that he could have all this stuff. And so anyway, that was
like a culture shock in a very, very positive way, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, you know, loved everything about our food, and yet we have tons of Chinese grocery stores, so he was able to, you know, have Chinese food in addition to what we served. And got to be, let's see, I guess a sophomore in high school, and he did become depressed, and we weren't even that aware of it at first. And then his small group leader from our church called us and said, you know, Gage has made a suicide attempt, and we were completely shocked. The attempt he made was just putting a grocery bag over his head. He didn't fasten it. It wasn't something that was going to cause him permanent harm, but in our minds it was still the thought and the attempt. So we jumped right on board, and we found a therapist that does orphan trauma. That's her specialty. And so it was perfect. A Christian gal, still a close friend to this day.
Can I ask you, yes, Barb, also, like, how quickly did he pick up English, and were you guys able to communicate to where, I mean, it's like simple things, you know?
Right. Well, what we did, we bought him an electronic translator before we even went to China, and that we had been told that was a good thing. And so you would just type what you wanted to say. Well, now we have on our phones the same, you know, service, but it was hard. I mean, I remember at the dinner table feeling bad because Jake and Dave and I would converse, and Gage would just kind of listen because he really couldn't participate. But it honestly didn't take him that long. You know, he became very fluent. I mean, yeah, and what was nice is he maintained his Mandarin too. So
I asked, and not to interrupt what you were saying, I was thinking, like, you know, how would you know? I mean, of course, you could see his mannerisms and his behavior change and his mood things, but at the same time, it's like if there's a little bit of a language barrier there for you guys, it would make it even a little more challenging, you know?
It was, and, you know, he didn't really honestly show any signs of it. And so it wasn't until this small group leader called us. So we got, you know, as I said, this really good therapist. He got on medication. We took him to University of California, Irvine, to their mental health place for teens. And he was there as an outpatient for 2 straight weeks. So he spent, you know, full days there for 2 weeks. Did really well. They said, honestly, he progressed faster than they expected by far. You know, he really did well. So, you know, he remained on the medication for about a year, and then actually took himself off without telling us. But we didn't notice any difference. And then when he finally did tell us, we took him back to the clinic at UCI, and the physician there who had treated him when he was in the day program felt he was okay. You know, that you don't take that for your whole life generally. Right. And he seemed to be fine. And so it was about a year later that he took his life. You know, Dave and I were he was 19, freshman in community college. Dave and I had gone out to Colorado to see our daughter, who had just had a baby in October, and it was her birthday. So we went out and invited both of our boys to go, and neither one of them wanted to. Jake was going up north with his girlfriend to see her family in San Jose, and Gage had a friend in town, and he said, I don't want to go with you for New Year's Eve. You know, we're going to do stuff here. And we felt fine leaving him. He was 19. He was in college, and but little did we know he was planning to take his life. And so he had a couple days, you know, there without us, even though I was checking in twice a day by text and phone. You know, when I look back at my phone records, he basically hung up the phone with me at 9:15 one night and was dead by 11. So even after having a perfectly normal conversation with me, he hung up.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. So, was a terrible shock. Even though he did have a history of depression, there was no way you would ever think that he would go to this extreme, or that he was, what's hard now is to know that he was hurting that badly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, to the point where, that's what they talk about suicide. The pain inside that they're carrying has to be so bad that they just can't take it anymore. So they just, and it's not your story, my story, perhaps many of your stories out there is not the first that you've heard, like everything seemed to be fine, unless they had a history, of mental illness or things that happen. Let me take a quick moment and say hi to Sherry and Millie. Millie's out there.
All right. Hi, Millie. Hi, Sherry.
And Mary West. And I think I saw Christine that was on here a little bit earlier. Yes, Christine is on there. Thanks you guys for being here. Sudell and Larry, my husband. I'm happy to see that you're watching, honey. So Barb, a lot of the moms that, whether it's suicide, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's sudden accident, illness, I think we all carry that feeling of a little bit of the guilt or, the woulda, coulda, shoulda. And we've all rehearsed and gone through that so many times. And I just admire you and your husband, Dave, for how you guys just have, did the best. Of course, you're in that frozen place, as we talk about. The landslide comes down, and we always talk about the landslide, right? Because that's when we just are buried underneath this huge, heavy amount of like snow after it just comes down off the mountainside, and we're just frozen. We don't know. We have these out-of-body moments to where it's like, what? This just happened? Like you said, you just got off the phone with him at 9:15, and then this happens, and then of course it's like, what could I have done better as a parent?
Exactly.
But amazing. Like you shared that, Gage, accepted Jesus Christ. Right. So right then and there was just one of many things that you hold on to, and you say, we did an amazing job, and we gave this boy such an amazing life, and you don't know what all of his, like, if we want to call them demons, were from like a long time ago. You don't know what he was exposed to for 12 years before you got him, right? Is there anything that you want to say to the moms as far as like, where has God been in this whole thing from the time it happened up until now?
Well, first of all, I would say our faith is what got us through initially. Those first days, weeks are so horrible, as many of you listening know. And, our faith was what we hung on to, not only our own personal faith and believing that Gage is with God and that we'll see him again, but also the church coming alongside us. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget the very first Saturday we came here to service, and we just had a whole row. Our whole small group came, a bunch of Gage's friends, and I felt literally supported because we were just surrounded by people that cared about him and us. And so that was hugely important in those early days. And, kind of some simple things in the early days. I had to have enough sleep. If I didn't have enough sleep, I just couldn't make it. And so I did take things to help me sleep a couple times a week, just because if I'd have a really bad night, then I'd have a really bad day. And so that night I would take something to sleep, knowing I couldn't afford to have another, sleepless night. And then the other thing was just getting outside. If I didn't get outside and get the fresh air and the sun every day, I noticed it. So, and luckily we have a couple dogs, which not only love us and help us be comforted, but we take them out. You're kind of forced to go outside. And so
those are your permanent accountability partners.
Yes.
They're just going to stare at you, right, until you take them outside for a walk. And when you were talking about not being able to sleep, I know that, sometimes as simple as like over-the-counter melatonin, these natural products to help all of us, like, it was almost like a joke when we had to fly to Cheyenne, and everybody's passing around this little tiny bottle of melatonin because the anxiety and, we always mention the post-traumatic stress disorder that we all have, regardless of, how it was when you lose a child, you lose somebody near and dear to you. It's like, it's trauma to the body, and you can't sleep. And boy, amen to if you don't sleep well, you're not going to have a good day the next day. Barb and I talk a lot about, she and her husband, Dave, if I'm okay to say, you retired.
Yes, absolutely.
Retired. And proud of it. We had a little celebration. Barb was part of the focus group when we had the book. We went through with, 10 of us, I believe it was. And Barb was also there to share the first go around with it and give us a little bit of her feedback. And the one thing that we want to say is, well, a lot of things we could say, but the consistency was the fact that we were together. and we had this instant bond with each other. And then we talked about being outside, as you just mentioned. And I want you to, if you don't mind sharing about, in your retirement, you already had a goal in mind. And again, respecting where everybody is and their physical, capacity of what you can do. But regardless, I'm to say respectfully, even if you're in a wheelchair, you can still have somebody take you outside. Whatever it happens to be, there's something to be said. But Barb took it to an extreme. Tell us, Barb, what you guys did.
So Dave and I both retired June 1st. I was a high school teacher, and so we kind of planned it around graduation day from my high school. So we both picked the same day. And then in August, we hiked the Camino de Santiago in northern Spain, which is a 500-mile pilgrimage. And
500, okay, not 50, 500.
Yep, it took us about almost a month, and it's it's something that's been done since the Middle Ages. Maybe some of you have seen the movie The Way with Martin Sheen that kind of recounts, and it's become more popular since that movie actually. But it was a contemplative time for us. It wasn't a time to chat. We did meet a lot of people and we enjoyed having meals with people, but when we were actually walking, we were pretty quiet. And it was just a time to observe nature, to think about Gage, to honor him. There's lots of little ways to honor people along the Camino. We had patches made up of his a picture
They were
of him.
they were so wonderful. Those little patches were so great. I still have one. Yeah, that was a great idea. Well, and I love that, you said you didn't feel like you had to really be talking, it was a time. And, and in the book often we talk about, dealing with other people, and we talk about all of these things, and sometimes you just want to be unplugged, away from your phone, and in a land that there's probably not a huge language barrier there, but because they speak English, and I know along the way that these people that live there will take some of the pilgrims, if you will, into their home and feed you and everything. And it's nice because you don't have to tell them your story. You can just be, my hashtag just be, and you can go through it. And so whatever it is that you need to do, aside from your faith and your relationship with God, is get outside, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Get outside, and if you can, hike or a bike or walk, or like I said, just sit on a lawn in a park and just be present in the moment, and just let God speak to you as you're going through this time. And I'm a little envious because they're talking about doing something else in Italy. I don't know. I might have to see if I could squeeze into the suitcase somehow.
Yeah, there you go.
I also want to mention, it's interesting where Mary West said, "Hi, Jackie." Hi, Mary. I wanted to say, if you want to put on here where it is that you're tuning in from, put it in the comments. And if you have another question, if there's something that you did during this time of this grieving to make you feel better, to get outside, to unplug, just go ahead and write that in the comments. We would love to see that. In addition, I want to say that, we always talk about not going through this and being alone. And the huge thing that helps is, of course, being in God's Word. And then every day I've been writing a Hope at Sunrise. And you can get those, you can see them on our Facebook page, but more conveniently, you can get them on your email. And if you go to the grievingmoms.com website, you can sign up to have those delivered to your own personal email, and we won't spam you with other things. It's really nice to be able to start your day off with that. You can take the scripture I put in there and go into God's Word and just really take it in and reflect on it. And also like to mention about, we're going to say this every week, because why? Not because I just have nothing else to say, but because of the importance on getting together. Barb has been involved in a group with us. She's doing other groups, and not to do this whole process alone. And yes, you can go through with your spouse, but just as a reminder, our spouses are our life mates, our soul mates, but at the same time, there's just something to be said to go through with other women as well, because men, they compartmentalize, with all due respect to them, and women are like spaghetti. It's like we kind of wind our emotions all together, and we can do a lot of ups and downs, and they just want to fix it. And that's the good part about them, because we don't want to take ourselves too down into a place of just despair. But I have to just say that it is just so beneficial to sit in the room and you're not feeling judged. There is no scales brought to the table, depending on, we have, suicide is a pretty horrific situation. Everybody's got a situation, and I just don't like to ever compare and say, well, my story is heavier than anybody else's, because it is your story. And at the end of the day, we've all lost a child. And therefore, we have another Hurting Moms group that the moms are in there. They have, children that are out that are addicted to drugs, or there's maybe been a big fight between them, and they're just distant, and the moms are really hurting because they're missing, their son or their daughter, in the sense that they're not relating and they can't just get to their heart. But they still have that hope that, they can come back around, they can be healed, and they can reunite. And whereas the Grieving Moms do not have that. And unfortunately, that is why that we have started Grieving Moms Finding Hope. Fortunately, unfortunately, because now for those of you that have experienced this terrible loss, you do have a place to go. And such as, and Barbara, before we started this Facebook Live, was saying, like, we haven't even seen each other, but that is because we listen to God, for many other plans that we have, right? But God's plans are the ones that we are going to follow. And if you want to share a little bit about what it is that you guys are also doing, since you branched off from the group that you were in before.
My husband and I both go to a group called Compassionate Friends, which you may have heard of. It's an international association for grieving parents, grandparents, and siblings of any type of death. And so we're chapter leaders, co-leaders, fine. And then I'm also one of their Facebook group moderators for the suicide group, which unfortunately we have 3,500 members now of people that have lost a child to suicide. And so I'm one of the group moderators for that. And it's hard. There's some very sad stories out there. And, it's sad because the children are younger and younger now. There are people in our group who've lost 10, 11-year-olds to suicide. And so that's just really, really hard to accept or even to get your mind around. And then I'm a retired special ed teacher, so my husband and I are doing an international trip to the Middle East to do some training of teachers in understanding neurological disabilities in children and how to include those kids in a classroom, which is definitely not done in those countries. So America's really on the forefront of including kids. So we'll be sharing that and doing lots with the grandbabies. We have 2 new grandbabies, which has brought a lot of joy. Yes. Truly, I think our experience would be so different without them, because that whole idea of new life and, the family's growing. And because, of course, you all know that empty place at the table and the empty spot in the Christmas card picture. And, to have these new little faces, it really makes a big difference. And so that's been our joy to have that. Yes, I can attest to that. Definitely. In fact, it's like, it might be quieter because we don't have, our boys, but boy, those grandbabies can sure fill the gap in there and making plenty of noise and keeping you busy. And I love that. I want to emphasize too. It's like, it sounds like, Barb is really busy. I could be really busy, but I want you to also understand that Barb knew exactly the way God wanted her and her husband to go through this. So they did this walk, this 500-mile walk. And again, that may not be for you, but they took that time of reflection, because I know there's a lot of moms that will just want to get out there and be busy. And then at some point, and the grief is still going to come up, and you need to face it. I wrote something that I put on there about, and I can't even remember the name of what it is I wrote, but it talks about grief, and it's kind of sits here on your shoulder, and it's just always there. It's always going to be there, no matter what. And sometimes you have to have a conversation with it. Sometimes, just reflect. And we have those moments, right? And Barb and I are the day that our sons went to heaven are so couple weeks apart, and those anniversaries are so incredibly difficult, and they do get better. If you think about, like, gosh, that first year that we had to go through everything together, it was just so incredibly hard, especially Christmas and all of that. But ladies, we are still here. We are still here, and we are still breathing, and we spend time in grief, and we spend time in sharing with other moms and our Grieving Moms Finding Hope group, and then we get outdoors. It's all about a balance. But the key is that you've got to keep moving forward. You don't want to get stuck in that space, because, as I keep saying, you're still breathing. God still has more for us to do. He's got so much more. Sherry is saying something is beeping on her. I don't hear anything beeping. Must be on your end. I don't know.
I hope nobody else is hearing that. I apologize in advance if it is, but it's really quiet in here.
It's really quiet in here. It's not us. We're not beeping.
We are not beeping. Phones are off.
Maybe they're beeping out our language. I don't know.
Maybe we're keeping it clean. I don't know what's going on, but I do love that it is all about balance. So I really encourage you guys, honestly, to find a place. You know, we, as I said, Barb's doing something, I'm doing something, but we've all seemed to get involved. And if you could touch a little bit, you shared about your daughter and your son-in-law potentially moving before you came here. Share with them about that and how you reacted to it.
Because Christine and Greg had lived in Colorado, and then just a year ago exactly, they moved to San Diego, which is about an hour and a half from us. So we've had a lot of family time this last year, and it's been so wonderful and such a joy. And they're very possibly going back to Colorado coming up in the next month or so for a job that Greg is looking at out there. But I was telling Jackie, I really learned to appreciate the moment, like having them here. They're visiting this week. I'm just loving it, and I know that it's going to be different in a couple months, and you know, we'll have to fly to get together, and it's going to be more complicated. There'll be snow out there, which is very hard to imagine, but I still appreciate so much what I do have, and that's one thing that's helped me get through this grief, is just realizing all the good that is still in my life. Yeah. There's a huge hole, but there's still a lot of good, and I have to focus on that. And, you know, I think one negative about being retired, I think about Gage a lot more, because when I was teaching, I really, as you were saying, I think I stuffed a lot of it because I was so busy. And so now, not in a bad way, but it's coming back, and I do think about him more. I dream about him more. And
so you do have dreams about him.
I do, and I look forward to those. Yes. I don't have enough. And usually when I do dream about him, they're very ordinary. Like the other day he fixed me this asparagus and potato side dish.
Carrots.
It was not carrots. No, he did not like carrots.
He did not like carrots.
But yeah, the dreams do feel like a visit, and they're good. But I think for me, every single night I thank God for things in my life, because there are many. There are many things that are really good in my life, and
our reactions are so different since this. Like you said, it's like, well, what you might have been so devastated that your daughter's moving to Colorado, and now it's like, well, you know, we've made it through this,
and we've had a great year together.
Yeah,
that we'll always have that. We'll always have the memories. So it's a good thing, and I'm happy for them, because it's going to be a good move for them. And you know, you want your children to have wings and.
Well, it's fun to go to Colorado.
It's fun.
You get to go snowshoeing and maybe
a little. I don't know about that. I'm going 3 seasons.
What, the adventure queen is like not going to go snowshoeing? This lady is like so. I love it because I'm so adventurous. Yeah. I even shared with her what happened this morning. I fell in a swamp on my mountain bike. That's a whole other story. But it's like it gave us laughs and giggles, and it was just really fun. One thing that a lot of things that you've said, and that was. You know, you did say that you stuck some of it. And I want you ladies to know that as long as because the Holy Spirit will come out and say, okay, Barb, okay, Jackie, you know, okay, you know, whoever's out there, you've been here a long time, you know, and you'll feel that nudge, right? But I think that if you are working after something like this happens, or if you're taking care of a grandchild like I did, we're so busy with that, God knows exactly what it is that you need to be able to feel and then not feel, and feel and then not feel, and to carry you through to where it's like, okay, all of a sudden you were working, and then you retired, but God's like, you know what? You're going to be okay. This is the time. And now your heart is open, your mind for more dreams about Gage. And gosh, I love those dreams about Randy. You know, I've dreamt that he's hugged me, and you get up in the morning and you're sitting there trying to write everything. And then you're like, well, that doesn't even make sense, but it doesn't matter. We had a moment with them, right? I had a moment with them. So looks like we are about a minute away from ending our Facebook Hope After the Landslide, and I just want to say thank you for joining, and thank you, Barb, for having this time with me together. And I am praying that these moms will be able to, and I know they will, take a lot from what you have said and your experience, because every mom has got something different. And again, Barb and I linked arms with Millie and Dee Dee and just everybody in the very beginning, and that was part of our healing. Definitely. To be able to share. We even went through Christmas together, and we've got together for lunch, and it's just really endearing because no one else really understands what it is that we're feeling except for those other moms. So grievingmoms.com, ladies, go under, there's a link that's right here on this Facebook Live that you can click on to join an online group, or you can do one in the privacy of your own home, whether you want to start it or if somebody else in your area has done it. We're growing and slowly growing at the pace that I know God wants us to grow, because I'm still grieving, and I thank you in advance for, things that if, we have messed up on our end, but we're just trying to really help you all to find that place to where you can find that hope and the love and surrounding with other moms. And I just really, really encourage you to be able to do that. And again, Hope at Sunrise, you can also sign up for those devotions that I write every single morning. So God bless each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your week. And until next time, just keep moving forward, ladies. Right, Barb?
Right.
All right.
Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you. God bless.
Good night.